At this time, I am only asking those board members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. I want to remind you to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. Alternates, please also state your name if you are attending on behalf of a board representative. Millery Senate. Nancy Yarnall.
Here.
Windang.
Here.
Marilisa Amador. Mary Dorsman. Angela Choice.
Natasha, are you here for Angela Choice?
Robert Goodman. James Green is absent. Vastia Moro.
Here.
Robin Manuel. Marlene Romnan.
Here.
Laura Schultz. Elizabeth Clark.
Here.
James Bonfiglio.
Here.
Michael Corbett.
Here.
Clinton Forbes.
Lou Ferry for Clinton Forbes. Here.
Takesha Saffold. Chelsea Reed.
I am here, and I think we have a couple people remote today, or no?
Yes, Robert Goodman and Takesha Saffold are requesting to attend virtually due to a scheduling conflict.
All right, so I asked my board, are there any objections to allowing these members to participate remotely? All right, seeing none, that looks great. They're allowed to participate remotely. And if you could note their attendance in the meeting minutes, that'd be great. Do we have any modifications to our agenda today?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, we do have goodie bags, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But since we have no changes to the minutes either, we're all set. So if I could get a motion to adopt the minutes as they have been presented.
The May 24th, 2023 meeting.
Did I get a second? Second. All right, so we have Bonfiglio and Dang for our first and second motion. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
All right, we have no opposition. It passes. We're going to move right into general public comments. So instructions on how to provide public comments are included in the agenda. So do we have any comments that have been received thus far? All right. Go for it. Say it again.
Oh, no, Madam Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. So I don't particularly have any comments I'd like to start off with, but I do, if the board has anything they'd like to say before we dig in, we always allow time for that. We always allow time for after as well. So let's go ahead and if you're on the Zoom, please utilize the raise hand feature if you have anything to say, and Ruth or Melissa will let me know so that we can make sure you are included in our meeting. So we're going to go right into our liaison report. And today we have Brian Ruscher, who is our TPA Deputy Director of Multimodal, who's going to review the liaison report today.
Yes, thank you. And I will ask that the presentation be pulled up for the liaison report. But before I get into the formal presentation, I wanted to just give a shout out to our administrative staff, Ruth Del Pino and Dina Ligotino, who are out front, who have put together some wonderful goodie bags for you all. So underneath your chairs, you should have a celebratory number of items from the TPA, including water bottles. Reusable water bottles are going to be our means of distributing water here at the facility moving forward. We're no longer to be purchasing any single-use plastic water bottles, so those will not be available in the fridge. Please grab your water bottles and bring them back to the LCB meeting every quarter. And then there's other safety materials in the baggies as well. Those are from Safe Mobility for Life Coalition. Those are orderable. You can order those for free from that coalition and have those resources available to members of the public who might be stopping by your offices. So recommend taking a look at those bags. Thank you to our staff for putting those together. Melissa helping to coordinate and make sure we have everything ready to go. Really appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge in the audience, Dawn Libertad with the Department of Children and Families, who is going to be requesting to be on the local coordinating board at the next governing board meeting. If you have time, she's so kind to give us as much time as she can today. Please make sure you have an introduction to her before you leave today. So could we get the presentation for the liaison report? And while that gets pulled up, I'd also like to welcome Latasha Brown, who is our alternate for the local coordinating board for the Department of Veterans Affairs. Maybe we can get a quick introduction after the liaison report from Ms. Brown. As an FYI, the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged Business Meeting and Training Workshop will be held next week in Orlando. Our LCB liaison, Greg Gabriel, will be returning from some leave to care for a newborn, will be attending on the TPA's behalf. So we're very happy that he'll be able to attend that and then report back at our next LCB meeting in November. For those of you who might not be aware, the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged is essentially our agency at the state level. They oversee all of the local coordinating boards and all of the administration of funds for the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged. And they have business meetings every so often, which we are invited to attend. The Florida Department of Transportation every year around the end of October hosts Mobility Week. We will be having a series of events that we're proud to promote here at the TPA. The best information from the state for how to get involved and plan your own Mobility Week event is at FDOT.gov. But if you're not subscribed to the TPA newsletter, you should go to palmbeachtpa.org and get subscribed to our newsletter so you can learn about some of the fun bike rides, transit challenges, and other events that our partners are going to be putting on during the month of October and November. Our next governing board meeting is going to be September 21st, where we hopefully will have appointment letters moving forward for the local coordinating board and many other agenda items. Please attend that if you can. And as a reminder, any member of the local coordinating board can request a one-on-one presentation with either myself or your LCB liaison, Mr. Greg Gabriel. We also have presentation options if you would like to present to the local coordinating board. Today we'll be hearing from Mayor Chelsea Reed, our chair, about her role and relationship to the TD in Palm Beach Gardens. So we'll be asking for volunteers towards the end of that, so the other meeting today. So that's all. Any questions for me?
Thank you. And thank you to the TPA for embracing sustainability. And we look forward to hearing back from Greg when he returns from the CTD business meeting. I was just speaking with Lou. I know that he'll be there, as he always has been for many moons. So nonetheless, as the meeting goes on, if you have anything you'd like to say, please go ahead and put your tent card up and we'll make sure we call on you. Otherwise, it's better to have your microphone off if you're not speaking. We're going to move right on to our action items. So right now we're going to start with the fiscal year 2024 to 29 Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan, or the TDSP. And this is the annual update for the fiscal year. We have Brian
Ruscher again, Deputy Director of Multimodal. I'll be doing many of the presentations today. So if you need a water break and you're tired of hearing my voice, use that TPA water bottle. Maybe grab me one too if you're at it. I only have my coffee. So Brian Ruscher, Deputy Director of Multimodal here at the Transportation Development Agency, here to present item 2A, the fiscal year 2024 to 2029 annual update for the Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan. The TDSP is the key document that more or less guides the overall transportation disadvantaged program here locally in Palm Beach County. And how this gets established is more or less, as I mentioned before, the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged requires that there is a designated official planning agency, or DOPA, and a community transportation coordinator, a CTC. We are the check and balance against one another in simplistic terms to make sure that both agencies are fulfilling its roles and responsibilities well. And the local coordinating board is our advisory body to the DOPA and fulfills a number of different roles. So that's kind of the structure and the playground that we're all in currently at this time. The TDSP is an annually updated document. Now, every 5 years, there is what we call a major update. That's where we do a complete, more or less, overhaul of the TDSP. We update all of the information, all of the data, all of the backup that goes into it. This year, we're looking at an annual update. The annual update is a roll forward of the update from the previous fiscal year that was adopted last year, fiscal year 23, with minor updates. The updates are shown in track changes online. It's developed in coordination by your CTC and your DOPA. So Palm Tran Connection staff and Palm Beach TPA staff work hand in hand to make sure that the updates are going in are effectively true, accurate, and the best information available at the time. And it's made up of 3 components. The TDSP, first and foremost, is a development plan. The development plan looks at the area's characteristics and tries to give a better understanding of what the population looks like, what are the services that are necessary, where people are located. So that contains a series of maps, tables, other information, which basically gives you the lay of the land, Palm Beach County's transportation disadvantaged needs. The service plan describes the overall characteristics of Palm Tran Connection and the services that they're providing. So you'll see information about the buses, the type of services they give, how people can register for the program. And then lastly, the quality assurance just describes how we are going to go about meeting the needs in a refined way so that the transportation disadvantaged population can receive the service. Descriptive of the demographic characteristics, you'll see on the screen map of the concentration of 65 plus aged individuals by census block. So you can get a sense of the heat map overlaid with the Palm Tran fixed route service to understand where transportation disadvantaged services might need to be held. You can see strong concentrations in southwest portions of the county, the Boca to Delray, Boynton corridor, especially along the turnpike, and then some pockets in the northwest portion of the county as well, where you see the stronger concentrations. Generally speaking, our concentration of the transportation disadvantaged population shrunk very minorly. It was not that substantial of a change, but we do track it and we do keep tabs on the census data and where that trajectory is going, just to be aware of it into the future. We obviously have to do our due diligence as a planning agency and ensure that we are updating our required documents. So every year we annually are required to certify our member list through the adoption of the Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan. So thank you all for your service and being willing to provide us with this, the document, and as it's being approved, move forward and ensure that we're providing this service. It's very necessary, and we'll get into some of the functions that the LCD might need to be called upon later. Generally, we do update the language in the document, try to keep it consistent with the times. We do update the document minorly in terms of design. You know, we have a really great emphasis on creating attractive documents at the DPA that are things that people actually want to go to and receive information from, rather than ones which just lay out like paragraphs and paragraphs of text. So we appreciate our work on that and our team. Of course, there are operational updates, which talk about some of the efficiencies that are being discussed right now at Palm Tran Connection. You actually have a presentation on this later today from our Palm Tran Connection staff. We have Claudia in the audience and Lou as well. We'll be discussing that later and discussing some of the assessment process. So these are the types of things that we incorporate every year. Whenever Palm Tran Connection looks at potential service modifications or talks about, you know, how they could adjust the service, we try to incorporate that into the TDSP. And we also ensure that the information is still accurate in regards to how they're operating services. So with that, the next step is for LCB to approve the annual update. We will, as the TPA, your DOPA, submit the TDSP to the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged by November 15th of this year, if it's approved. And then next year, we'll be approaching you for an annual update. And if there are any other operational, service, or demographic changes to be aware of, we will make note of that in the TDSP. With that, is there a motion to, we're seeking a motion to approve the 24 to 28 TDSP annual update. Thank you.
All right, great, Brian. Do we have any public comments or anyone who is on Zoom that wants to say anything at all?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, I turn it back to our board. Do I see any questions for Brian regarding this? All right, move right along. So it's appropriate now to seek a motion for the fiscal year 24 to 29 Transportation Disadvantage Service Plan, or TDSP, which is our annual update for the fiscal year. So I'll take a motion.
Well, I move to approve the fiscal year 2024-2029 TD Service Plan Annual Update as set forth in our action item 2A in our agenda for today.
All right, and I'll take a second.
Second.
All right, you guys are king and queen of seconding and firsting.
And Madam Chair, thank you for the motion and the second. We do need a roll call
Roll
vote as
call
well.
vote. All right, great. So before we do that, let's do a roll call vote. Ruth. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Mallory Senate,
Yes.
Nancy Yarnall,
Yes.
Windang,
Yes.
Mara Lisa Mador,
Yes.
Mary Dazimond,
Mary Dorismond,
Not here.
absent. Thank you.
Latasha Brown,
Yes.
Robert Goodman, Basti Amaro,
Yes.
I thought he was, isn't he virtual?
Robert Goodman, or
He is actually not online. I haven't seen him come
Oh, okay.
online
No
yet,
worries. All right,
so-
great. Sorry to interrupt.
Nope, that's
thank
okay.
you.
Robin Manuel, Merlene Romnon,
Yes, approve.
Elizabeth Clark,
Yes.
James Bonfiglio,
Yes.
Michael Corbett,
Yes.
Lou Ferry,
Non-voting.
He's not a
Oh.
voter.
Takesha Saffold,
Yes.
Chelsea Reed.
All right, I say yes, and I believe that motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so move along. Brian, don't move. We're going to go right into the next item, which is fiscal year 2024 LCD bylaws.
Thank you. Get the presentation pulled up. All right, once again, Brian Rusher, Deputy Director of Multimodal for the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, here to present item 2B, the fiscal year 2024 bylaws for the local coordinating board. This is probably the least exciting of the presentations, but this is a rules that we abide by, so we're going to make sure that we go through them anyway. The bylaws are more or less what the agency has to have and to ensure that the local coordinating board follows a form and structure for how we conduct ourselves and how we conduct our meetings. So the bylaws are actually quite important because, as I'd said, they guide the proper functioning of TD services. They're what we rely on as our North Star for how we should be doing our operations and procedures and how we're going to fulfill our policies to meet Florida statutes and rules. So in a nutshell, they more or less set requirements for our TD services and our LCB operations. Every year, we have to go about updating them. There are no proposed changes to the LCB bylaws with one exception where in the bylaws, a kind of dated requirement that didn't seem to be caught over previous years was that the LCB would notice its requirements via Palmtran as well as the TPA. And that is not a standard practice and procedure. It is one agency's responsibility to notice its own meetings. So that has been removed from the bylaws. Other than that, we've updated the bylaws to align with our formal operating procedures and legibility just for standard practice. The bylaws were provided online. No other operational changes have been recommended. So with that, I would like to request a motion to adopt the 24 to 29 LCB bylaws. Thank you.
Right. Super. You made that very painless. Forward. All right, so
Try to.
let's go ahead. Do we have any public comments or anyone on in Zoom world that would like to say anything?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, great. Anything from the board? Moving right along. Let's seek a motion for the fiscal year 2024 LCB bylaws. I'll take a motion in a second.
So move.
Thank you. And a second, Vasti, I see you going. for it.
Second.
All right, great. So we've got Dag and Amaro for our first and our second. Is this roll call? Or are we okay just to do it?
We're okay with just a voice vote here.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. We have none opposed. That motion passes successfully. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're going to move right along to grievance procedures. This is a fun
This
day
is a
of
fun day.
presentations for you.
This is a good one. Greg picked a good meeting to have some vacation time during. Once again, Brian Ruscher, Deputy Director, here to present item 3C, the 2024 grievance procedures for the local coordinating board. So the grievance procedures are another one of our mandatory documents that are necessary for the local coordinating board to have, because if there is ever a problem, and in my history with the TPA, there has not been a grievance formally submitted to, knock on wood, the TPA. But these procedures more or less establish our parameters in case there were ever a grievance filed. So we'll get into a little bit of that. Lou does a really great job every meeting of bringing any type of complaint that has been filed, whether it's valid, not valid, the type of complaints that he's receiving, and goes so far as to give his cell phone number out occasionally to members of the public who have complained at this board about those services. So we're very happy and proud that we have a good CTC partner. And in the instance that anything ever does need to come before this board, there is a procedure that is in place. We've created this step 1, step 2 flow chart, which more or less describes the process. So I'm going to walk you through that, what's on the screen. First and foremost, the CTC will receive a complaint, whether it be via email, telephone, social media, in-person, mail. They receive complaints in a variety of means. They will go about conducting an interview process to establish whether that is a safety related complaint or a non-safety related complaint, to figure out what is the level of priority and how quickly they need to address this issue. That is broken down in the kind of 2-bar on the left side. They'll also go about reviewing evidence of the complaint, pictures, interviews, onboard video, is as far as we can go to really get at the heart of the issue of grievances about the TD service that is held locally. Complaints are then internally derived with more or less a ruling locally at the CCC prior to coming to the local coordinating board. Notice of resolution is either presented as resolved or unresolved. So if the issue is resolved, the local coordinating board has no action. If the issue is unresolved, it is on the grievant to make a case to the local coordinating board within 10 days of that unresolved action. And from there, the designated official planning agency, DOPA, Palm Beach TPA, all of us, get to contact the grievant party, arrange a meeting, collect evidence, and then the DOPA subcommittee has to meet on the grievance that is submitted. So we'll go about getting to the subcommittee part in a second. If the matter is resolved locally by the grievance committee, then it stays here. If it remains unresolved, the DOPA has to schedule a hearing, meaning the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board Subcommittee will establish a hearing where we will have the parties come, make cases. The Palm Trunk Connection will be able to come and make a case as well. And they can file a formal complaint up to the local coordinating board beyond that, if it reaches that point. So long way of saying we have a formal process. We have a CTC preliminarily screening the complaint and attempting to address it before it comes to this body. If it does need to come to a subcommittee, we can go through that. But as I had mentioned before, hasn't happened during my time at the TPA. I'm not sure if Lou's familiar with the time that we've had that type of process ever happen, but we do need to have these procedures in place because this is a important service and it's mandated by the state. So what does a grievance subcommittee look like? We have 3 current members, Mr. Bonfiglio, Ms. Dang, and Mary Reed. When we thank you all for your service. And we do need to ask if there are other volunteers or if we can retain the same volunteers for the next year. So that will be an administrative thing that we'll need to take care of during this action item before we adopt the procedures. But generally speaking, if it ever comes up, this subcommittee will process and investigate any unresolved grievances, make recommendations to the LCB or to the commission for the improvements of service, but you do not possess adjudicative or determinative powers. So we don't dictate the end outcome. We can only make a recommendation to a body above. So with that, before we go to a motion, I would like to ask the chair to please facilitate a discussion around the subcommittee and its members.
All right, so just to clarify, is it required for the chair and the vice chair to be part of the member subcommittee? Of the
No.
3 people?
I
No?
believe the chair would be best if it's possible, but
Understood.
I don't believe it's a requirement that the chair of the subcommittee be the chair.
Okay, is there anyone else who's interested in serving on the subcommittee at all? Don't all put your card up. All right, so we'll probably just leave it as it is for the motion then. So we'll keep it as the 3-member subcommittee as it is with Mr. Bonfiglio, the vice chair and the chair.
So long as we can we're receiving a head nod from Ms. Tang and a
Yes.
yes
Okay,
from
okay.
Mr. Bonfiglio. So with that,
Nominated will not run.
They're being
Duly-
voluntold as usual.
duly noted, voluntold. And with that, we would like to please have a motion to approve the fiscal year 24 grievance procedures.
I've got a question.
Microphone.
They turned it out, I guess it did. I've got a question. I went through this carefully before today's meeting. And I didn't see anything that provided for judicial review. You do have a review with, I wrote it down here, let me pull my notes. With the State Commission for Transportation Advancement, Disadvantage Ombudsman Program. That's not judicial review, I don't think.
Correct.
So does that procedure, if they file with the ombudsman, does that provide for judicial review? And if so, is that sufficient to meet what I think is a requirement that our process ultimately results in, a losing claimant being able to file something in circuit court if he's still dissatisfied with the result?
That's a great question. And whenever an attorney says that they've looked through a grievance procedure very closely prior to a meeting and comes with a question, that, gives me a little pause before answering. So before I answer, I'm going to ask if Lou, who has been serving in this process for quite some time, can answer. And if not, we can get you an answer after this meeting at the next one.
All right, thank you for the question. Yeah, so Lou Ferry from Palmtran, for the record. So in my time here of over 21 years of Palmtran, we had one grievance. And it was back in 2003. It was from a guy who went to each county and filed grievances and tried to get paid for it. The grievance procedure is really in place to ensure that people are heard. Okay, it's not to be in the end, like Ryan said, it's not for in the end you say you did wrong or you didn't. It's for them to be heard. And if they don't like, and if we haven't satisfactorily changed the way we provide the service, because normally it's about service. If it's a safety issue, that didn't have, maybe there wasn't the lift, there was a problem with the lift. So what did we do to rectify that? And so it wouldn't happen again. So really if judicially it's outside of this, just as this board is an advisory board, it goes even further. For that one grievance, we actually took it all the way to the TD Commission and they didn't know what to do with it. So the ombudsman group didn't even know what to do with it because they weren't ruling on it. It was that they were there to hear and see if there was action done. Claudia actually, she might have something to say.
Claudia Salazar with Palmtran. Public transportation requires compliance with ADA and Title VI. Those are the venues that our customers have to even go into litigation, any kind of discrimination to access public transportation. And those are the views, again, that's the way they go. Those are the ways that they get to use to go in a litigious matter. When they can say that we, the provider, did not comply with any federal or state requirements. So they go through that and there is a whole set of, again, rules that we must follow, and they get to follow that again litigiously if necessary.
Still don't answer the question respectfully. Number one. Number two, the grievance process has jurisdiction over a lot of complaints besides rider complaints. Problems with commissioners, things like that, all go to the grievance committee. My concern is that if someone goes through this entire process, and I believe it's a fair process, and they keep losing, tells me that that's a very determined claimant. And if he goes through to the ombudsman and loses there, he's going to be very dissatisfied and may attack our procedures because it does not provide for jurisdiction in a judicial forum to review the administrative process that resulted in him losing. And we may, the result may be that these rules, grievance process is declared perhaps unconstitutional because it does not provide for judicial access after administrative exhaustion of administrative remedies. That's the problem that I see. And, you know, if he's gone through all that, you've got a real determined and an upset claimant who is going to see that he doesn't have the right to file a complaint in circuit court. And he may attack our entire grievance process because it fails to give him access to courts. That's the question. So I guess we should submit it to the legal
Counsel,
department and
TD.
ask them.
Next week.
Yeah,
At the
so,
conference.
so at the TD Commission, I can talk to our liaison for the
Yeah.
Transportation Advantage. Their legal counsel will be there, everyone will be there. I will say that this is based on the TD Commission's standard language. So they've had.
I
so-
don't have a.
No, I'm
yeah.
just saying, so they've,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is their standard language. And I'm not sure if, where I'm going is, I'm not sure if they were challenged with that question. So it's a good question to have, and we'll ask that question.
Well, we'll give the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage a heads up about this question prior to the business meeting next week, and maybe Lou and Greg can report back at our next meeting.
Another concern I would have is assuming the ombudsman has a process which at the conclusion of that process allows for judicial review. Would our grievance process have to also include a clause that allows for judicial review for a disallowed claimant? In other words, would the ombudsman's process be sufficient to meet the judicial review requirement for our rules, assuming that's there? That would be my concern about these rules that, you know, I mean, let's face it, if he goes through all that process, he's determined, okay?
Right. And I will say it is a fairly, I think it would be a rare instance, but the one instance where it could come up would, you know, raise a question. So we will bring it to the Commission of Transportation at a Disadvantage. I will say, you know, we have had these bylaws for at least a decade, and they're the standard language. So if we need to go back and amend them, if something comes out of this, then certainly we could do that if the committee sees fit. But we'll bring that question, these questions, I should say, to the CTD and ask for their opinion.
That was going to be my next question. Can we go ahead and adopt this grievance procedure now? And then if Mr. Ferry comes back and says, we need a clause that authorizes judicial review at the conclusion of an adverse ruling to the claimant, can we amend the process, say next meeting or the meeting after that, so that our rules provide for that?
I believe that there are allowable allowances
Okay.
for amendments to the grievance procedures if we need to. You know, I think that it's probably rare, and I'm guessing that the CTD will say, no, we've never had this, it's not an issue, and there might be something to be said for, you know, it being resolved in a court one day throughout the entire state, because these are pretty standard language, but absolutely, we'll bring the questions and we'll bring an amendment if necessary.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I do
Good
need to back
questions.
up before we do anything else from the board to see if, we always have to make sure there's no public comment first.
No, Madam Chair.
All right, super. And no one in Zoom is asking for anything. Do I have anything else from our board? No other questions? All right. So Brian, for this one, do you want a roll call vote or are we okay?
No,
just to do-
just yay and nay.
All right, sounds like a plan. So once again, seeking a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2024 grievance procedures as they are currently. So I'm looking for a motion in a second, please.
Well, I'll move to adopt the fiscal year 2024 grievance procedure as set forth in action item 2C in our agenda today.
All right.
I would second it.
All right, thank you so much. And so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Say nay. All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
for-
All right, one more voting item, I believe, and that is our TD rate model. So I'd like to invite Brian to the podium to present on this as well.
Sure. And I'm actually going to happily defer after 3 presentations to Miss Claudia Salazar
All right.
from Palm Trend Connection, who will make this
Oh, lovely.
presentation.
That's right.
We did have this item in May, but after review from the CTD, they recommended a revised model be adopted. So Claudia will present that item. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. Hello, Claudia. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Claudia Salazar. I am the Grants and Capital Project Analyst for PalmTran. The transportation disadvantage rate model is one time a year that we set. I usually see you 2 times a year, one for the rate model and the other one for a report on an annual operating report. You get to see me 3 times this year because they made us revise this. Just to give you a background of what we discussed in May is how are the rates established? So what rates are we talking about? Because we are the CTC, because you are the LCB, because Palm Beach County is a recipient of TD funds, we invoice the Commission of Transportation Disadvantage for that program that we have. We have a TD program. We have identified those trips for us that are beyond the ADA requirement. Because PalmTran provides public transit service in buses, we are required to provide service to those who are unable to reach the buses within 3/4 miles of a stop. That's the regular ADA service. But Palm Beach County has provided service beyond that barrier for years. And that's what we call our program for transportation disadvantage, everything beyond that barrier. At the same time, a monthly pass costs $70, and we assess our clients economically, and those who are economically disadvantaged get to buy that pass for $15 or $20 based on their income. So that's our background, that's our transportation disadvantage program, and that's how we spend our dollars. Because we spend more than what is allocated through the grant, we have learned how to give you reports, but we're also required to only report of transportation disadvantaged trips that are billed to the LCB. The impact that we have in changes on our rate is exactly that. We have to work with a worksheet that is provided by the LCB. We put in our costs for our services, and it's run through that spreadsheet. Whatever number that spreadsheet comes out with rates, that's what we have to use. As I mentioned again, everything is allocated based on the trips provided. As the Commission Disadvantage allocate funds for every upcoming year, they don't look at anything else that we do for transportation disadvantage. Their formula is based on the number of trips that we bill to them. So in May, we presented to you the rates, as I mentioned, that are created by this spreadsheet that is protected, we cannot touch. We just put our numbers in it, our budget number that goes all of the costs for PalmTran Connection. In May 24, those are the rates that come up on that spreadsheet. For ambulatory trips was $69, and for wheelchair trips is $118. When I presented this information in May, I'll let you know that the way that PalmTran pays for these services, and we use the same vehicles for ADA as we use for TD, which is a special requirement, again, that you can have for TD. Some people have separate vehicles. We have the same vehicles providing ADA and TD. We pay by hour, service hours that we provide. We do not pay by trips. So again, we're trying to mix apples to potatoes. I mean, they're all kind of round, but they're not the same thing. The spreadsheet is supposed to do that for the entire state of Florida. In many places, they have different rates for ambulatory and wheelchair accessible. The spreadsheet even has trips for people who provide transportation for, again, stretchers. So it's very broad to feed everybody and we don't all look the same. So at the time, that was the rate. The spreadsheet that was provided has one entry right under those rates that told us input the desired rate per trip, and it must be less than the trip above. So what Pamtran did in May is we took that cost that we reported on that spreadsheet. Based on the trips that we provided, we came up with, well, how much of that is transportation disadvantage? How much are we spending around per trip? And that calculation, based on the numbers that we reported, was $39.91 on an average for our cost. Our cost is actually higher than that, but remember, we cannot manipulate that spreadsheet. It's as we did percentages of our costs. The percentage of our cost just for the trips billed is about 13.96%. And overall, our transportation disadvantaged trips are about 21% of all of our trips, the trips that Connection does. We submitted this information to the LCB, the 3991, as it was calculated based on the numbers that we provided. When we received the grant agreement in June, the rates that were on that, there's an attachment or an agreement for the grant that we're going to bill for the rates that we're going to use, had the numbers calculated by the spreadsheet, which were the 69 and 118. When we contacted TD and let them know, well, we use that other feature that you have on the spreadsheet, we were told, oh, we don't use that feature. We go again, this is the spreadsheet that was provided to us, and they do not use that. They strictly go with the calculation. The state of Florida paid for a consultant to develop that spreadsheet, and that's what we're supposed to use. So we were told to go another way. As I mentioned, we had already done the work. We had already come up with that percentage. So we went back and only inputted 13.96% of our cost, which is the actual trips billed that we billed for the immediately preceding year, and we run them through the spreadsheet again. What I wanted to show you again is the kind of trips that we provide. Over 500,000 ADA required within that 3/4 of a mile ambulatory trips, 109 for non-ambulatory exclusively wheelchair. So we have over 600,000 trips that are provided annually again by Connection here in Palm Beach County. Beyond 1/4 of a mile, we have 139,000 trips. These are trips, again, for people that if it wasn't for us, they would not be able to have transportation to go to work, to go to their medical appointments. We were able to beat 91% of the 91,000 of those 139,000 trips at the rates established during the prior years by the spreadsheet calculation. So in fact, we're only billing 65 or 70% of our trips. What we need to learn, the most important thing for us locally, that now I get it, is that when they're going and review allocations for the following year, that's all they're looking at, the 91,000. Was it more or less than the prior year? And it's usually less because our costs go up. Those rates go up the way they're calculated. So we bill for less trips. It doesn't mean we're providing less trips. We're just billing for less. So now that we go in, we have revised the 2023-24 rates based on the numbers that we have. Remember, we were going for the 39.91. When we input 13.96% of the cost into the spreadsheet that I cannot adjust, those are the rates that come up, $30 and $51.54. So we are billing even less cost per trip. But remember what the consequence is going to be. We are not going to be reducing our trips. We are billing at a lesser rate, but we get to bill more trips. The first concern that we have is if we go with this, are we going to be able to bill the entire amount of the grant? And the answer is yes. Why? Remember, we were only billing 65% of our trips. So at the new rate, we still get to use our entire amount of the grant. We have 12 months to spend it. There is no extension. The agreement comes in with the proposed trips according to those rates divided by 12. If we don't bill them, we don't get it. Based on our historical for the number of TD trips, we are going to be able to bill for that. And to me, that is the one thing that I want you to understand. That this is the way, again, that they are adjusting it based on the spreadsheet, but we're not reducing the numbers. The TD service is not affected. We are continuing to provide the same service. Everybody gets to call. We do not shut down the TD service just because we run out of the grant. As I mentioned, every month we bill less trips than when we actually provided. We are following that directive. We are billing again everything that we can on that, but the program is not affected just because our rates have been reduced. At this time, again, based on that, we have the revised rates that we are submitting to the CTC with your approval, and we need a vote for your approval on that rate model.
Sure, we'll have some questions here. Do we have any comments from the public right now?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, and nobody on Zoom with their hand up. All right, I see that Lou's card is already up, so we'll start there.
Okay, sorry. I know this is very confusing, so I'll apologize for this craziness, but this is a problem, put it that way. And I know you've heard me say this many times, but so last year for 2022 to 2023, I think we got about $3.1 million from the grant. We are required to match that by 10%. So $300,000, we'll just say. We match it by over $2 million or more to continue to provide service to the transportation disadvantage in Palm Beach County. This coming year, when we got the grant that Claudia taught, our allocation actually went down. So we're not getting 3.17, we're getting less. And the reason why we're getting less is we're not showing the trips because, as Claudia said, we're billing for less trips. So I find this to be a very, very big problem. I will quickly say that we might be coming to this board with a recommendation from the Board of County Commissions to change the TD program because many CTCs, many counties in this state, they see $3.17 million and then the match and however much that is, they put trip limits, they put trip priorities. They say, this is our allocation. We're not putting any more money into it because this is a state program. We didn't choose to run this, but now it's gotten so large. We don't want to say no to our constituents. So we might come with some different ideas on how to provide service TD wise, which could be a good thing. But one of the things is our hands can't be held tied behind our back by a state agency that doesn't really understand how much we're providing here in Palm Beach County. It's not right? So we don't want the allocation to continue to go down because this rate model that I've talked about in the past too, the problem with the rate model is it's trying to take rural counties and urban counties and putting them together and comparing them the same way. You can't compare Miami, Broward, and us to Hendry County, to Sumter County. It's just different. It's a different way to provide service. So unfortunately, we had to come back again with these. Next week, I plan to have lots of conversations about this. There's a lot of things, even Brian said, we have to do this because we have to do it. There's a lot of things within the TD program that they need to change just because time has passed. It doesn't apply anymore. It doesn't make sense anymore. So they are looking to change some things, but I just wanted to say, this is something that's not a good, I don't think it's a good thing for all of us because the allocation's going down, but we're still providing the service.
Madam Chair, I have a question. This is Marilyn Ramnan from the Department of Health, because my brain is kind of a little bit fuzzy right now, trying to understand, billing less, but doing more trips. And I know the speaker spoke about in terms of the spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet is not calculating what is the true numbers and trips. How can we get rid of that spreadsheet?
So, we could put a letter together from the Palm Beach County LCB saying that, you know, we encourage the, Commission for Transportation Disadvantage to revise the TD rate model and how we, our recommendation would be make it a block grant. Make it a block grant. This is how much money you get, 3.7, and do whatever you want with it. If you so choose to spend more, then you're spending more. But to say with these rates and we get less money and more money and it doesn't make any sense, that's our recommendation, to make it more of a block grant. Florida, the FPTA, the Florida Public Transportation Association, has an agenda also that it's part of that, saying make it a block grant, do some different things. We can share that with you guys as to what they're proposing to change in some of the Florida statutes pertaining to the TD Commission. But it's unfortunate because I was actually in front of you're there in Martin County, and I was in front of the commission, and I said, this has created a Jets versus the Sharks from the West Side Story, where it's urbans versus rural, and everyone's fighting for the money, and us urban, where we actually have we have rural out west, but that they don't count that as rural. But you know, it tends to look like we're the big bad guys taking all the money. But we have the higher population, we have more trips, we have, you know, it makes sense when you look at how the money should be allocated, but it's coming from Tallahassee, so.
I think a lot of us are acquainted with that. So this is great timing that you're going to the meeting next week. So, and I'll get right to you. Actually, go ahead, Mr. Bonfiglio, go ahead.
Could you turn your microphone on, please? Microphone? Thank you.
Are you saying that what you want us to do is recommend that staff put together a letter, asking to essentially block grant these funds for us? In addition to voting for the approval of the revised TD rate model?
If I could step in, once everyone's had comments, we'll address that. So we'll put this to vote today, and then any letter, and that's what I was about to say. It's a good thing that Lou is going next week to the TD meeting, because there's a great place to have that kind of informative conversation, so that between now and our next meeting, we'll have the opportunity to put together an agenda, put together the possibility of a letter that this board would then review. I'm comfortable doing the vote today. What do you think, Brian?
I actually would feel slightly uncomfortable with putting it to a vote without a formal presentation and ask and where these rules and regulations
You mean
come
the
from.
letter, but
The letter,
Okay,
yes. So just so
not
that
the item, that's
whole,
not the action item today.
whole local coordinating board is aware of what we're asking, what rules are requesting to be changed. We can receive a request for an agenda item, get the information for the local coordinating board, provide a draft letter, and have a discussion at a future local coordinating board meeting. But I would
not right now.
I would not make a motion with this agenda item for revised rate model to also make that recommendation, because there are other avenues for going about policy change outside of the local coordinating board, which might be more effective. I know FPTA Florida Public Transit Association has been making some headways in those discussions, but it's slow. It's slow rolling. It's a statewide program. It affects urban and rural areas. So I would hesitate to take a vote on a letter today without a full understanding of that policy that we're asking the chair to pen something for,
So, yeah,
or
that's-
our
yeah.
governing board to.
Something that we're looking at for perhaps next meeting or the meeting thereafter.
Next meeting or the meeting following.
Okay, so but today we do have this action item on the agenda. Go
There
ahead.
is still the
Well,
discussion.
it could also be at your workshop. It could also
Correct.
be
Yes,
during your
it's-
workshop, you can actually kind of talk about these things. But I will say, you've had letters from this LCB in the past that
Correct.
have either supported or, you know, kind of helped. Because you're really, if you think about it, the Commission for Transportation Advantage is the big board, and then you're reporting to the Transportation Disadvantage and those boards. So they do want to hear from the local, you know, boards to figure out what you want. So, but I would say, yeah, in a workshop, you guys can workshop that out and
Mhm.
see what's makes sense to you or not.
Right. And there's some things what we might want to have the state come and talk about it as well, to get their perspective and hear some of our complaints as a local coordinating board as well. Ask them to come to a meeting potentially would be better suited than maybe requesting the chair pen something or the staff chair pen something for the chair kind of preliminarily. I'd recommend holding on that and making sure we get through the rate discussion before, you know, we move on to that. So.
I agree. That's how I'd like to manage the rest of the meeting. So do you have before we go on about the letter, do you have any other questions specific to the revised TD rate model for 2024. for
Yes,
fiscal year
if we approve the revised TD rate model today, I guess recommend approval. Will we be able to deal with the funding issue with respect to changing to a block grant in the future?
That would just be an agenda item that we would present and ensure that the whole of the coordinating board is aware of the recommended change, because I think the block grant discussion is adjacent to the rate model, but it's more or less a different issue that I think it requires a change in either the Florida Administrative Code or Florida statute. So it is a much larger issue than just the rate model itself. Does not preclude it coming up as a future agenda item. We'll take note of it and see what we can get from the Commission of Transportation Disadvantaged prior to bringing a formal action item back to the LCB.
So is staff recommending that we approve the revised TD rate model today?
The motion is, staff recommendation is to make a motion for approval of the revised rate model, yes, for that specific item. And there is no other item on the agenda for us to make a motion to recommend
Okay.
either approval or denial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the board have any other comments or question regarding fiscal year 2024 revised TD rate model? I see Basti has your card up. You got it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is this time sensitive right now for this motion for today?
Yes. We are able to begin, because there were issues again with the rate model, we have an agreement. It's effective July 1st, I'm sorry, July 1st is the start of the fiscal year, so that we can begin billing. Right now, again, we cannot begin billing because we need, again, the rate finalized.
Thank you.
And because it is going for revision, I would venture to say it can be revised in the future if need be, but this is just so that they can, Palm Trend Connection can begin billing.
And continue to
Yes.
provide the service. I believe. All right. So, and I don't see any other cards. We don't have any public comment or anyone on Zoom at all. So I'm going to call a vote going forward. So if I could get a motion in a second to approve the fiscal year 2024 revised TD rate model, please.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 revised TD rate model as set forth in action item 2D in our agenda.
All right.
I second it.
Win.
I was looking at Jerome because I see his finger.
Come on,
on
go
the
ahead.
button,
Go ahead. Okay, let's,
but-
I'll second that.
why, thank you, sir. Okay, great. So I don't believe we're doing a roll call vote on this one. We'll do, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion passes with unanimous ayes. Thank you so much. Good luck with your math.
Thank you
That
so
felt good.
much.
Felt like a little bit of a calculus lesson and
Yes.
we really appreciate you helping us understand because I
Thank you so
know
much.
it's really difficult.
Thank you all for your time, your attention, and I'll see you next time for the annual operating report.
Thank you so much. Now we are moving on to our information items. We are not voting on anything else. However, I do find that this is sometimes also the meat of the meeting, right? Where we really get to learn and understand what's happening around us. So we'll start with the CEP for is that you, Lou?
Yeah, if
or-
you don't mind. If
Yeah.
you don't mind, I have a lot of papers, so I'm gonna sit here if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah.
So, let's see. I will not take it. Okay. All right. So what the CEP is actually the Connection Efficiency Project. So, back, I would say in 2018, we did a route, performance maximization project with our fixed route. And, that changed routes, straightened out some routes, better headways for certain routes. So we decided to do the same thing and take a deep dive into Palm Trend Connection. So this deep dive we call the CEP, the Connection Efficiency Project. So the first step that came out of that, we had a consultant go through everything. We really analyzed what we do. We compared us to our peers, seeing where our costs were compared to our peers. And there were 3 recommendations that came out. The Board of County Commissioners approved this. And the first one was, instead of a registration process for our eligibility, we were going to go to an enhanced eligibility. At that time, actually, it was going to be an in-person. Then something called COVID came around. So we changed that actually to a different assessment program, and we're doing it by phone. So now if you want to become eligible for Palm Trend Connection, instead of a piece of paper where you take it to your doctor signs it, because why not? They'll sign anything for you to pay the copay. And then you're eligible. Now it's an enhanced where we ask you and we assess for your need. What is your need? Is Palm Train Connection the right service for you? Or is there a different service that we can fix route might be better? Maybe you have maybe you live in Century Village and you didn't even know that there was transportation there. So that's number one. And that was implemented in February of 2021. So we actually started that interview process in February of 2021. The second was an exploration of an overflow option. So at that time of the CEP, we actually had a problem getting vehicles. So we had limited resources. And through the pandemic, we did well. Then after the pandemic, there was a problem getting drivers. It was difficult to hire drivers. So we were looking at something outside of the traditional paratransit, which is the buses that you see, kind of like an Uber, a Lyft, a taxi type service to improve our service. That was number two. And number three was non-ADA transportation alternatives, meaning we would look at that. The area that Claudia was alluding to was, and we'll show that in a little bit, our ADA area is so large, we kind of do more than we're supposed to. So look at that service area, redefine the service area, maybe some of the program parameters to kind of control our costs, make us more efficient. So those were the three initiatives. The initiative 2, which was that Uber Lyft type taxi service, was implemented in July of 2023. So I'm going to go over some of that now. Does anyone have any questions about the concept of what this is and anything like that? Good to go. All right. So slowly. So, okay. So this is just showing you that first phase, which was the eligibility part of it. In August of 2019, we had 428 applications that were deemed eligible. And as you can see throughout the line in the middle, you can see how they've declined. Where in March of 2023, we actually had 92, 127 in April, 104 in March. What this means is it means that a lot of people used to apply and get the service that really didn't need the service. And really the reason why they applied and got the service was they got the ADA card, and the ADA card allowed them to ride the fixed route for free. So they said they were disabled just so they can ride the fixed route for free. Now, since we're doing this new process, the people that are getting recertified are not being really recertified anymore. We can look at their account, and for 3 years, you never took a trip on paratransit, which means you don't have a disability that prevents you from using the fixed route bus. All you do is take the fixed route bus. That really doesn't make sense. But the idea of the card was, if someone that is an ADA user in paratransit, if they could, let's say, use the bus to get to Walmart, but use paratransit with all the packages to get home, it would save us costs. So as you can see, it was very successful, and it is very successful right now. So the alternative number 2 is that implementing an overflow option. Okay, so the emergency contract with First Transit Transdev for 2023 actually included moving forward in this second phase. So it allows us an overflow option for UServe. UServe is a company like an Uber and a Lyft, but UServe actually has drug and alcohol testing. It has sensitivity training. It has background checks that Uber and Lyft drivers do not have. So they go above and beyond. And if you utilize UServe will also help door to door. It's similar to the service we're providing now on Palm Train Connection. It's just people using their own cars. And then Lyft, well, Lyft is obviously Lyft and Uber, so you know what that is. So the UServe overflow option, it was implemented in July. We had to solicit this to some of our customers and say, look, we have a different means of transportation that to come pick you up. It was actually difficult because people were like, I'm just used to the bus. I don't know what you mean. A car's coming up. We want to try it and just see what it's like. And the advantages is that, just like Uber and Lyft, that vehicle normally gets there on the beginning of their window. It's a 1-seat ride, so it takes them straight to their trip. And it also allowed us to focus on those that really needed us, that had the mobility issues, the wheelchairs, the things like that on our paratransit side. Then we were more efficient on the paratransit side because this overflow flow option helped us with the reduction in the vehicles we have now and drivers. So then right now we actually are up to almost 200 trips daily. At that time we had 160. So it's going very well. Everyone's liking it. And then the Lyft program is going to be a rider's choice program. So the Lyft program means the rider's going to choose to take Lyft instead of Palm Train Connection. So we created a sign off where it's called the Palm Train Connection Rider's Choice Pilot Program. So they can read what the program is, and then they have to sign off to say, I'm choosing to ride this instead of Palm Train Connection. But what this gives them, it gives them a special code in Lyft, a special unique code where they can go anywhere they want with Lyft, same day. They utilize the technology that Lyft has, and we pay for the trip. They pay $3.50. So it gives them another option. But again, they don't have to use Palm Tran Connection. So that's and I'll go a little bit further into that in a second, but that's the alternative part of it. The third phase, I'll just say, that development of the non-ADA service is being worked on by our consultant right now, with options that might be presented to the BCC in a workshop that we're taking to the Board of County Commissioners. So I can go a little further into it, but I know we have some other things going on today. So that's pretty much, let's see, that's okay. Oh, we wanted to show you this, Joe. I'm sorry. The program reevaluation of the ADA.
Apologies, 1 second.
Oh, did we lose something? I was timed out.
Someone tried to access our account just now. Go ahead. Minimize it. I think we're still live. Thank you.
There we
Great.
go. So why is phase 3 even relevant? Phase 3 is relevant because if you look at that map, I know it's a little hard to look at, but if you look at the map and you see the we'll say salmon color, the salmon color is where the 3/4 of a mile of a bus route is. Okay. But then if you see the dotted line around it, all that shaded area like up top near in Jupiter, down south in Western Boca, Western Boynton, Western Lake Worth and that's all considered ADA because of the core area. The core area we've created is from the turnpike all the way east to the ocean and North County boundary to the South County boundary. Now, normally in transportation, you go 3/4 of a mile and that's all you provide ADA service for. What this means is we have more ADA rides, okay? But it also, we have to abide by the ADA rules, which means we can only, if someone asks for a trip, we can only negotiate up to an hour before or an hour after that trip, even if we don't have room for them on a bus. We have to try and force them in. There's other requirements that the ADA has. So we're looking at what can we do if we reduced it back to the 3/4 of a mile, but still provide service for those outside of it, but just do it in a different way. Maybe it's that TNC model. Maybe it could even be a higher fare. It can be, because theoretically, if you're moving near transit, then you use transit. But for those that are outside that put themselves in they move into a gated community, the only way to get in that gated community is by paratransit or some other alternative transportation, which we really don't have right now. So that's what we have to look at, because the costs for Palm Tran Connection, our budget is close to over $50 million right now, over $50 million. So that's why we're looking at that non-ADA part. I think that's the end of that. So any questions about the CEP?
Anything public or on Zoom? All right.
No,
so
Madam
Ms.
Chair.
Dang? Oh, sorry. Okay, nothing. All right, Ms. Dang?
Thank you. Thanks. So I'm very curious because especially some of your alternative models shifting to TNCs itself. You said that the average the user is paying $3.50 regardless of what the trip cost would be. Do you know what is the average trip cost per ride?
So for UServe right now, we have an average trip cost for UServe at around I would say about $43. They just started billing us now, so we're trying to look at what that is. And we see Palm Tran Connection costs at around $52 to $53. So right now we're looking at about a $9.26 savings for each trip that's on UServe.
Right.
Lyft is going to be similar to that, but we have to start that to see what that trend is.
Yeah.
On the UServe, the average trip length is actually very long. Right now it's at 14 miles, but that's because we've tried to get people to use the service.
Right.
Theoretically, on the Rider's Choice program, we're only going to be allowing 50 trips a month, because we figure we looked at the average trips from our heavy users, and that's actually about 42 trips a month, but we figured we'd give them some more trips. So there's a cap of 50 trips on the Lyft program, because we can't have the Lyft program cost us more money. Right? We can't have more trips created than their trend was before. So we're going to analyze. We have Mr. Smith, and Mr. Smith took 45 trips in a month, and now he wants to take 70. Well, he's probably doing that because he has a better alternative, which is great, but it's costing us more money.
Right. I think I did look at some of these rates, especially, I think I looked at Dallas for DART. And I think they also shifted to TNC models as a pilot, especially during COVID. And I think their average, like the way that they looked at it is connecting these riders to transit connection and not particularly paratransit to like a location. I think their average is between $10 to $13 as far as subsidies. You know, and so I'm just very curious. It's like, even though there's a cost saving, and you're right, it's because it's a little bit more convenient that the cost is going to be increased. Is there any considerations, like your average, it's 14 miles as an average ride? That's a very lengthy ride. Is there
Well,
a cap to that?
I will say that Palm Beach County, is a
Yeah.
very large county,
Yep.
and it's one of those things that, if you live in Boynton, your doctor's in Jupiter, you're gonna go to Jupiter for your doctor, and we can't say no, unless we can say no, but we have to get that from the Board of County Commissioners. Right now, we don't say no. So there is a consideration. So this is a pilot.
Yep.
The consideration is that a lot of, like DART, what they do is they'll say, we'll pay, for the first 5 miles or 10 miles, anything over that, you have to pay out of your own pocket. We're looking at this right now as that overflow option to help us even become compliant with the FTA. So right now, our on-time performance for last year was close to like 76%, 78%. We need to show the FTA that we're actually working in different ways to get that on-time performance back into the right thing. So this is almost like crisis mode to try and help us. The only way we can try and control is to control the growth of the program. So we have to kind of if this pilot works, then we can possibly use the TNC model and change it. We don't have to have it like this. This is it's a pilot. We figured out by the average of the amount of trips that people are taking, that $10 is going to be almost $9.30 that we're saving is still a savings compared to what we can do on Palm Tran Connection. But it's also something that we worked into the emergency contract for this year, because that's the only option we have. We have an RFP out on the street right now for a new provider for Palm Tran Connection. There is a component in there that we can move up to 20% of the traditional Palm Tran Connection onto a TNC type service. But for that, we're allowing them to come to us with their proposal on how it's going to work. And not necessarily is going to be the same way as this, but this, we're just trying to get our users have a different little bit of a mindset of this is how it could work. Yeah, it's exciting, yet it's scary, like you're saying, because it's so many different factors inside.
Yeah, I think that's the factor of having a limited, an unlimited amount of range for them to reach versus putting a cap on it. I think even if you look at Tri-Rail and what their program is for the taxi service from the downtown station to the airport, they capped it at $10.
But the difference is, and it's a great question, but the difference is, I have a gentleman who lives in Western Boynton. He's blind and he works at the Walgreens distribution center up near Jupiter, way up there, right? So if we put him on U-Serve or something like that, if we don't, then Palm Tran Connection has to provide that service anyway. So you're not comparing it to we have to compare it to ourselves. So we know our costs are so high on the Palm Tran Connection side that if we could also get some of them off on these other programs, we can concentrate on those trips and make them more efficient by multi-loading better on the paratransit side, and we can possibly actually reduce our costs on that side too. So that was the thought process behind it, because no matter what, we have to provide the trip. So we would provide it on the more costly service.
Keep going. It's great.
Oh, no,
there's
that's good.
there's no stopping. Go ahead. When do you have some more questions at all
No,
or
no.
comments? All right,
Okay.
we do have another card up, and yeah, I've heard so many stories about residents in the county that live, Belle Glade or out west and will have a job in Tequesta, and 5 days a week they're
Yeah.
taking Palm Tran Connect, and
Our longest trip is 63 miles. It's from Pahokee to Boca.
that's the one.
63 miles.
Yeah, Ms. Clark.
Sorry. Okay, so a couple questions. Lou, have you all explored using taxis? So you only mentioned TNCs.
To get it done right now with the emergency contract, we looked at this. We also were pushed to try and use the new technology,
Mhm.
the TNCs.
Okay.
Taxis traditionally have been working within paratransit for years. It's just they didn't have the U-Serve component, which was the compliant component. We wanted the compliant component. That was one of our most important things, to try that first.
Okay.
And then the rider's choice, it just so happened that our provider already had a relationship with Lyft.
Okay.
So that's why we chose.
So with UServe, I understand how Lyft works. With UServe, is it similar, like the communication with the riders? Like, does it look like an app? Is it?
So right now, it's similar to riding Palm Train Connection, but a sedan comes to pick you up. So it's really, they're developing an app right now. It should be ready within the next month. The best thing that they do is they actually text you the night before.
Okay.
They tell you who the driver's going to be. Then they text you before they show up, and and then if they need to find you, they actually have a call center that watches all of this. And the phone number, the driver can call them, but it goes through the call center, so they don't know the phone number.
Okay.
And then they can find the rider or something like that. So they're very communicative, but it's by text right now.
Okay. And the UServe vehicle is marked?
It's marked as UServe, which I think I had a picture on one of them.
Go back
That was my,
in the slideshow.
yeah, it was in my other slideshow.
Oh.
But right now it looks like Uber and it has UServe.
Mhm.
And then within a week of now, because it was at the printer, there's going to be a Palm Train Connection one under it.
Oh,
The problem we have with having a Palm Train Connection one, there was a concern by me that if they don't take that off and then they provide Uber and Lyft service outside of that or other service, and theoretically, if something happens, they could think that it's a Palm Train Connection. That's what it looks like right now. It was a rainy day. I took a picture, but yeah, it's right there on the bottom.
Okay.
It says UServe. But right now, everybody really enjoys it, especially because if you're used to that multi-loading and being compared to a fixed route bus ride, this is much quicker. They really enjoy it. They like it. Also, we're trying to get customers familiar with the drivers, so it's more like they're doing it every day, like kind of, so they get to know the drivers, and it's working out pretty good. It's working out really well.
All right, great. I think we have a remote person. We have Ms. Saffold. Do you want to go ahead and speak?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Lou. I have a suggestion if it may be beneficial. I've explored many paratransits within my travels, which is something that I really enjoy doing. And one paratransit in particular, Access-a-Ride, which is out of Denver. I don't know if it's the same as in New York, but in any event, what I experienced from utilizing their paratransit is that even as visitor status, they provided like some type of code that you could input within your, I believe, the Uber app. And what that does is that it provides up to $25 no matter where you're going within the parameter of utilizing paratransit. And so I'm not for certain, but my thought is that either way, they're providing $25 per trip. Anything over that dollar amount, the consumer themselves pay for, and it's automatically drafted. And of course, that's for consumers who are able to utilize the app. I understand that many may not be able to have access to that type of app or software or technology and so on, but maybe perhaps in conjunction with some of the other service alternatives, because there are many that many paratransits use. But I just thought maybe if that could be one way of saving, because if they're paying $25 per trip, that I don't know in comparison to what's currently being paid out, would that be a option, a inexpensive option for some clients that would be able to benefit from utilizing something like that? So I just wanted to throw that idea out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Saffold. Do we have any other remote participants that would like to speak? All right, does my board have anything else they'd like to say, add, or otherwise? Nope. All right, great. Very exciting time to be on this board, you guys. Lots of things coming up. Thank you so much. So next up, we'll have our CTC evaluation response.
Yes, so Madam Chair, just briefly, this was part of the CTC evaluation, which was performed earlier this year and concluded in May. The CTCs provided the opportunity to give a response to the recommendations made by this body, and they have done so, and it was included as an attachment that is available as attachment to the agenda, but there's no presentation. And it's in the agenda backup if members would like to see it, ask questions or comments of Lou or I after the meeting. So thank you.
Perfect. Okay, great. So I'm going to skip the LCB presentation just for a moment and see if we have a partner agency that wants to go ahead and say anything else before we.
We do
It's
have
been going for a while,
one
yeah.
brief presentation to be made for partner agency updates.
Yeah,
from
do you mind if I go
Palm
ahead and do that now?
Can we pull that up, please? 3D.
That's a little more important than you guys listening to me talk about Palm Beach Gardens, which I'm
Never
happy to do.
No way. So every meeting I present these numbers because you guys have asked me. So unless you want different numbers, I can always do other ones. But for May, June, and July, so for May, we had 9,110 TD trips. We had 13 raw complaints and 7 were deemed valid. In June, we had 7,495 riders and 5 complaints, with 1 being valid. And in July, 6,787 trips, with 3 complaints and 1 valid. We had 2 late pickups, 2 others, 1 discourteous driver, 1 cell phone usage, 1 damaged property, which I think they backed into a mailbox because they jump out all the time, and condition of vehicle 1 and vehicle no show. So that's just a short look at what we have. Do I have anything else or no? I have one more thing I want to say. Okay, so just wanted to say that we have enjoyed the summer months because our on-time performance on fixed route was over 80%. Connection was on 90%. So it was great. We were all meeting our goals. It was great. So Go Glade service continues to grow and provide an excellent customer service. But I did want to mention this again so everyone knows that the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners has challenged PalmTran to look at ways to make the fixed route and paratransit service more efficient and less costly. So there will be a workshop on September 26th at the Governmental Center where they've asked us to present as PalmTran ways to kind of become more efficient. Our budget is very high. So PalmTran is the 3rd largest budget in Palm Beach County. First is Sheriff, second is Fire Rescue, and then 3rd is PalmTran. So just something to think about. And one thing before I let go, I will be going to the TD conference. I encourage anyone that wants to go. I did nominate this board as the Outstanding Coordinating Board of the Year. And the Outstanding Coordinating Board of the Year, it was, you were accepted. So you are in the finals to become the Outstanding. I have all the nice things that I sent about you. You can look at it later. But I did want to just go over just a couple. And I did say the Palm Beach County Local Coordinating Board is comprised of individuals that truly care about the community and the transportation disadvantage. Led by Chairperson Mayor Chelsea Reed, this board's focus has been to advocate for and encourage the coordination of transportation. Coordination in its true sense, where all parties are involved and focused on the same goal, creating alliances with all transportation providers while ensuring the delivery of reliable, compassionate, high quality, and on-time services to the transportation disadvantaged population. They have been an integral part of shaping the face of transportation in Palm Beach County. Each member fosters the team philosophy among all transportation participants, promoting a positive attitude within the communities and help increase customer advocacy for transit. We have members that are active in the community and don't just show up for a quarterly meeting. They actually encourage stakeholders to ride transit. So the past few years have been difficult for everyone as we rebound from the pandemic. With the collective efforts of the Palm Beach County, LCB, DOPA, and CTC, the TD program in the county continues to improve service delivery and increase customer satisfaction, which increased customer confidence has resulted in increases in ridership. The LCB members assisted the CT and CTC in combating the workforce dilemma by helping to spread the word about the driver vacancies and LCB member vacancies. So they're not afraid to tackle any subject, whether it be budget, service hours, or discussion on prioritizing trips. Palm Beach County does not have to worry about not having a quorum. The members take pride in the work they do and make sure they show up. So Through the dedication, organizational and leadership skills, the Palm Beach County Local Coordinating Board is the perfect nominee to be named Outstanding Coordinator Board of the Year. So I want to thank you guys for being so good to all of us. So,
Wow.
good.
Very kind words. Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
great job,
Fingers crossed.
guys.
Let's hope we make it through the finals.
Honestly, yeah. Wait, go ahead.
Going against Indian River County, because last year they won.
I sense some competition there.
I-
Yeah.
Because I sit on their board as well. Yeah, we're going tomorrow morning.
Not a knock, but I'm not worried.
This time it's off, not them. Because I live here, I don't live in Indian River County.
We know where your alliance is. I'm just teasing. Anybody have anything?
And
to-
one other
yeah.
thing, we actually do have a nominee, also a dispatcher for a dispatcher of the year as well. So pretty cool. So, yeah. it's gonna be good.
Way to end on a great note. And thank you for your kind, on behalf of all the board, and I especially just having to get to chair this last year. So thank you so much for your really kind words. I'm gonna frame that and put it in my office. All right, so all we have left is our presentation from our board member, which is me today, so I'll make it brief. But I do want to volunteer who's next, who hasn't gone.
Members who have not presented on their role in the TD service yet. We can look back. Nancy?
Yeah, we do.
Volunteer Nancy,
Pardon
Nancy.
me?
Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy hasn't.
Nancy,
and-
we would love for you to make a presentation at the next meeting if possible on November 15th, and we'll work with you on getting the presentation kind of parameters in advance, if that's okay.
Yeah, and James got out of it by not being here today, so we might.
Did,
We might need
Good,
to.
so we
actually
might have
bump
two
him.
presentations next
All right.
meeting.
Okay, great. I'll go real fast. So do I have a clicker? Lou, may I borrow the clicker? So, all right, so you guys are probably wondering why I'm even here with you, right? I don't know if you know, but so just so you know, the reason why I'm sitting here is because part of our bylaws require that you have an elected official as your chair. And so lucky enough, I'm on the board and was asked to chair this amazing group. So that is why I get to sit here with you guys every quarter and get to work with Lou and really enjoy my time with our TPA staff as well. So I'll make it quick. Let's see, Lou, what do I push on this? I thought I did. Very good. Thank you, Wynn. Okay, so I thought it would be a really nice opportunity to tell you about life as an elected official, because I know you guys spend a lot of time working on very, very high level things. And you have 39 municipalities, and you have the county, and the county, you've got the commissioners, and the municipalities, you've got your mayor, you've got your vice mayor, you've got so many different things, so that I can just give you kind of a glimpse into the everyday life of an elected official to some extent. So this is our beautiful Palm Beach Gardens. We have about 60,000 residents. It's also my hometown, and kind of just ran for office because I cared about my hometown, and will happily step down in about 2 years and be done with elected service. So I'm again really proud to represent my city and work with my amazing city council. And our city council is also made up of a great guy who's my vice mayor, who used to be a police officer locally, and Bert on my far right in that picture also is a lifelong local in Palm Beach Gardens. So we are a really nice sort of a family of a council, and we don't always agree, which you don't want us to. We're elected to 2 3-year terms, and then we are termed out, except for example, Bert on the right and Marcy on my left there in that photograph. Both were termed out and took 3 years off, and crazy enough, they ran again. So they are back on council, and they're allowed to stay for their 3-year term, run again for their 2nd term if they'd like to. And Marcy is also my alternate for the TPA. Mostly what we do is we adopt ordinances and resolutions, we award contracts to government, and we set the budget. And I'm so proud that our council has reduced our property rates last year, and we're set to reduce them again. So even though people's homes are worth more, they're actually going to continue to pay less or the same on their taxes in my city, which I'm really proud of. So I love transportation. And so it's ironic that I wound up getting to chair the TPA as well as this board. It all began in 1994. My husband and I opened our first office in what was Loman's Plaza back in the day. And any hands up for Loman's Plaza? Yeah, in the 90s, it was the place to be. And it was also where I-95 ended, right? So we had a fabulous practice. We were seeing upwards of 300 patients a week. We were in physical therapy and had about 30 staff. And I was like 25, 26, and he was 28. And we were having a great time. And all of a sudden, we heard about something called a flyover. And they were going to extend I-95. And it was the first time I realized that local government and FDOT had a lot to do with my ability to employ 30 people, as well as see about 300 patients a week. So that was my first lesson in understanding transportation in my local hometown, and kind of led to where I am today. So I'm a big fan of transit. As you can see by the picture that Valerie took of me when Palm-Tran Connect rode by, I got very excited. It's an honor to be a small part of this. And then in my city, we're working really hard to make sure that we take care of our residents and how we get them around. So back before I was even on council, we've replaced most of our bus shelters for Palm-Tran with artistic bus shelters. And we are now working with Palm-Tran to try to do that everywhere else and tell them how we did it and what we've done well, because as you guys know, Palm-Tran has received funding to improve their bus shelters. And so we have a couple that we still need to work on, but I just wanted to shout out, it was actually Marcy's idea to start those a couple of decades ago, and you can drive around and see them anywhere in the gardens. They even have little solar panels on top. So you're able to have lights at night, and it's a pretty cool place to hang out. We take art very seriously in the gardens. We've also put in a transit-oriented development district, or an overlay, so that we're redeveloping. Ironically enough, Loman's Plaza is kind of the dot in the center where we're putting in as much as we can with density, intensity, and the ability for people to choose not to show up in their car. So I would have you guys drive by Loman's Plaza now, and then drive back again in the next 3 to 4 years, and you would be amazed at what's going on. For example, we're in the process of finishing up PGA Station. There's a train there. We kind of hope it stops one day. We're working on that. And then just across the way, Florida Power and Light has put in a resilient building. This building is full of sustainable features, can withstand a Category 5 storm, and also is built for a 500-year flood. And they're going to be having 2 buildings on site, and each one will be about 1,000 workers coming and going. And the nice thing about that too, since we're talking about transportation, is they do stage when people come in. Not everyone shows up at 9, not everyone shows up at 5. So we're really thinking about how many trips we put on our road with every single project that we develop, like everybody else is doing. So super proud of that. This is PGA Station being built. It's actually almost done. You can see lots of cranes up and around the city of Palm Beach Gardens. Anyone go to downtown at the gardens lately? I promise the carousel is coming back. It's on its way. It's almost repaired. So we're almost done with phase 1, which was kind of a facelift. And then phase 2, we're looking at, this is something, Wayne, what do you think? That's a lovely pedestrian friendly drive-through that we're going to have right there by REI. So we're getting really close. Cheesecake, we'll see what happens. But what we're putting there is we're going to wind up putting in an apartment building, hotel, Class A office space. Again, this development takes trips off the road and allows for our folks to get around without the use of a car. Out west, since Palm Beach Gardens is growing, we have Avenir. Avenir will have 3,900 homes when it's done. It will take about 10 more years to finish, but it will have 10-foot multi-use paths, the ability for golf carts to come and go, massive bike lanes. So if you're a cyclist and you're looking for somewhere safe to bicycle, they're going to have miles and miles of cycling open. And the most amazing thing is that over 50% is put into conservancy, into open space with 10 miles of public walking trails. The one thing you may not know about Palm Beach Gardens is that we are 15% green space in perpetuity. So whoever is mayor, whoever is in council, forever, gardens will be 50% green space, and we build all around it. Workforce housing is a real problem everywhere, so we're taking care of it ourselves. All of that new development you saw going in our TOD, at minimum, 10% of it will be workforce housing based on our area AMI, which we can get into some other time, but we're working on it. We know it's an issue. And we do a lot of this with the help of the TPA and partners like you guys. So just the TPA alone, we've received several grants, all about the ability to get around without having to use a car, and the ability for things like buses, mobility and demand and otherwise to be able to get in and out of our cities safely. And I can talk about that for 2 hours. So I'll go on to the next slide and let you guys know that we are doing everything we can with all of the partners we can to try to keep our residents safe, so that whether you're 8 or 80, you'll feel comfortable on our roads in Palm Beach Gardens. And that is it. There you go. And so I think that's all we have for today. Going ahead, our next meeting will be on November 15th. We're looking forward to hearing from Lou and from Greg about the upcoming meeting in Orlando. And most of all, wish you luck on this 26th of September. What time is the meeting at the BCC that day? 9 o'clock. All right, well, we'll all be watching. And let's see, any other member comments? Nothing else? All right, with that, this meeting is adjourned.
3:34. Thank you. 3:30.